my competition days aren't done, but just like
Yeah.
actual like MMA, like full fighting, they would have to pay me a lot of money. I won't say they're completely done, but it's very highly unlikely that they're ever going to pay me the amount of money that I would have to be paid in order to compete again like that. But yeah. Grappling's fun though. Grappling's fun. I'm really excited about grappling right now. The new stuff that I've been working on, I don't know if you saw any like the primal combat stuff that we've been doing, but it's pretty weird and it seems to work really well.
Right.
And it's weird because it flies in the face of so many things that we think we know. You know what I mean? Like just conceptualize like wrestling stance. Like what is wrestling stance? Like immediately the person like bends down, right? Bends down, like whereas like my stance is very tall. Like very tall. I've kind of figured out something that I'm calling statue stance. Like I've never heard anybody else really talk about it, but it's essentially you just like make yourself like a standing statue, like pretty straight legs, not completely locked, but pretty straight. Posterior pelvic tilt, head over shoulders, shoulders over hips, hips over knees, over ankles, and the weight of the heels. And it's crazy how you just make this real straight shape with your body, and people aren't really. It's very difficult for people to take you down. It's like more difficult than anybody thinks that it should be. And I've been testing it out in like jiu-jitsu and freestyle wrestling and stuff. There's some holes in it. Like it seems like knee bars are a bit of an issue. So I got my leg popped recently with that, but still, it seems like there's some crazy efficacy that nobody really is. At least nobody's talking about. Maybe some people know it, but no, definitely nobody's sharing it online. So it's been pretty fun. It's been a lot of fun. I really like finding new things that people haven't really discovered. That's like kind of my favorite thing is to find like a new way to use something, or like even if like an old thing, like repurpose it and put it in a different place or something like that. That type of stuff really like jazzes me up, you know?
Yeah, no, for sure. It's like finding treasure, right? Like there's all these little gems out there, and there's so many things you can do, right? Like you've got 2 arms and you got 2 legs, but at the end of the day, it's like there's infinite combinations.
Yeah.
And it works for different things, right? So yeah, I mean, it's great. And I never competed at the level you competed at, but it was a lot of amateur stuff. It was kind of in the early days of MMA here, where it was just before everything was sanctioned, right? Like you remember those days, and it was just crazy. And
those are the best. Those are the best times. That was the golden age, I believe.
It was, but you didn't really like. I'm learning like it was like you have the overhand and you got some sort of wrestling base, and it was just like you're swinging for the fences, right? And now the striking is so much more technical, and I'm watching these guys coming in, and it's just like back then it was like, okay, I've got the overhand and I'm just gonna throw bombs in there. And
I never had an overhand. I swear I never had an overhand. When I came in, I like really didn't know shit about an overhand. I just threw everything straight because like I didn't really know much coming in, and then I wasn't that like I had a bunch of street fights, but it wasn't like I was like really good at street fighting when I first learned MMA. So I like one of my first coaches just was like really into like straight punching, which obviously those are probably the most useful punches. So I learned that right away at a pretty young age, like 17. So I mainly focused on straight stuff for like at least the first half of my career was almost just jab and cross and then some kicks, Yes, I was never that dude with the overhand, right? But pretty much everybody has one. Like I've even talked about this in a couple of videos. Like it's like the number one thing that everybody is vulnerable to because everybody like leaves their front hand down, like the Floyd Mayweather thing. and then every single like street fighting idiot has like this big like swinging overhand. So like really anybody can get clapped. It's like it's super dangerous, man. It's actually not an easy hole to close because even if you're blocking like the blocks that you learn in boxing, like it doesn't really deal with the overhand when there's like a glove that's that big.
Right.
You know, it's not a 16-ounce glove. It's not a 10-ounce glove. It's like a 4-ounce glove. It's like barely a hand covering, you know? So it's way easier to fit in those little holes. But I started to do this thing a while ago, like 2014. It's like a shell,
Right.
right? So after you throw your cross or you throw your jab or something, and you think an overhand's coming, you just shell that, and it like totally closes that jawline off, right? Like there's nothing getting in. And then there's also the destruction if the person does end up punching you in the hand
Right.
or
Right.
elbow, right? You can damage their hand. And then like this deals with the uppercut and the cross. So even if they were like trying to be tricky with you, like it's all blocked off. But obviously it gives up the body though, which is like you can condition that at least. So I started.
So you would throw that, like you would throw a jab and pop right into that right there.
Yeah, right away. Like
Okay.
I started using it like 2015 after I got knocked out a couple times, once with the overhand, and I just kind of made that the default, you know. So like after I throw a kick, right? Say I like throw a rear leg roundhouse kick, and it like brings me into the opposite stance. After I land, instead of having a hand down, I'll just land with a shell. Right after I throw a jab, I'll just shell real quick, and I don't keep it there. But for that beat that the counter would go, right? Like after I throw the jab, like boom, bang. That's when the counter would come, right? So I go boom, bang, and then I can take it down just for that beat right after whatever strike I'm throwing. And it was really useful, man. Like I stole it from Rory. Yeah, did you ever see the Rory McDonald versus Tyron Woodley fight?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I watched that fight, and I had got knocked out on that same card. That was like my debut in the UFC. I got knocked out by this Korean dude, and then after my fight, I'm watching Rory just beat the brakes off of Tyron with this, and Tyron's winging overhands at his head, and Rory's just like shelling everything and like just picking him apart with the jab. I was like, man, I'm gonna take that. So I took it and I put it into the game, and like the next few fights, I literally didn't get hit. Like I changed a bunch of my footwork patterns too, and made it a lot more tricky and deceptive. Taught myself southpaw, all that stuff. But just that shell for the overhand, man, it changed the game a lot for me, a lot.
Kajan Johnson. I'm an ex-UFC fighter. If you're an MMA fighter and you want to hack the system, I've got your back. I'm creating Pro Fight Guide, everything that you need to be a pro fighter. We've got a bunch of courses that are already done, and we are cranking out new ones all the time. We've got the anti-wrestler guide, right? I fought a bunch of wrestlers. I fought Islam Makhachev. I fought Rustam Habilov. I fought Adriano Martins. I fought world champion jiu-jitsu guys. I fought Greco-Roman wrestlers. I fought freestyle wrestlers. Man, I've been fighting people trying to hold me down like my whole career. Needless to say, I've been studying this problem intently, and I've crammed all of the knowledge that you need to beat wrestlers into one guide. One-stop shop. This has bottom game, this has striking, this has cage control strategies, wall work, how to get up, how to rip their leg off if they don't let you up. It's got everything you need to whoop on these wrestlers. The anti-wrestler guide alone is like 70 plus videos or something. I'm gonna keep adding to it. MMA basics course, we've got all the things that you need to know for like your first year of training, really. Striking strategies, grappling strategies, submission escape, submission attacks, positional awareness, passes, transitions, footwork patterns, the basic weapons, the most important weapons, the foundation of the weaponry, the arsenal that you need to build as an MMA fighter, how to chain from striking into takedowns, strategies on the wall, like how do you grapple on a wall, because a lot of the time people just teach you jiu-jitsu and they teach you wrestling, and then they're like, yeah, go, and then there's a wall there and you're like, what the hell do I do with this thing? They're like, I don't know, figure it out, right? You don't have to figure it out. Get the MMA basics guide. That's what we made it for. I know some of you guys live in remote communities. Like I grew up in a town called Burns Lake, like 2,500 people tops. we don't have access to elite level MMA instruction in Burns Lake, BC. This is one of the reasons that it's so important to me to make this. It's gonna be a database for people that don't have access to world-class coaches. You do now. Just get the Pro Fight Guide, 70% off still. This is the last chance. You gotta get it now. We're raising the prices because it's just gonna be too valuable. Even if you're not a pro fighter and you just wanna learn how to defend yourself, if you wanna learn how to get in shape, MMA, honestly, for me is the best way to stay in shape because it's so much more stimulating for your brain than running on a stupid treadmill. Last chance right now for the 70% off pre-order on Pro Fight Guide. We're raising the price.